How's it going, all you happy lost souls? If you're new to the channel, I'm glad you found it. If you like it, you want to stay tuned, tap that bell icon, hit subscribe. It helps. The channel is growing. So really, the channel is mainly just me and I'm the main content creator, but a lot of it centers around research of early peoples in North America, specifically the northeast coast, and more specifically I am in Pennsylvania, and most of the stuff that I go over is found in streams in the southeast of Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. Now, I have all kinds of theories and speculations and put forth hypotheses based on some of the information we find at these sites. We know that these sites have been quarried for their unique and exotic materials. And what you see here is this older culture that we talk about, maybe 17, 20,000 years ago. This culture that has a lot of tools and similarities in material, culture and presence as the Solutrean seal hunters from the last ice age from the east. They came from Europe, from what we now call Spain, the UK, back then Doggerland, Germany, France, that whole area that was being swallowed by ice, and they kind of just followed the pack ice over along the Gulf Stream, and they found America. But what is fascinating about this culture is their use of and their mastery of stone and precious stone. I started finding some smaller semi-precious gemstones and precious gemstones that were actually formed into artifacts, a single-shouldered early spearhead, or early arrow tip. These are all aluminum oxide. Everything you see here is aluminum oxide or corundum, and aka sapphire, ruby, and emerald. And corundums form, four-sided shapes or six-sided shapes, and sometimes you can still get them while they're faceted. So right here is what we would consider a black or a shimmer sapphire. And you can still see the faceting, how it's trying to maintain that six-sided shape. Very, very neat. Now, this material is, right under diamonds on the hardest natural materials. Now, it is many, 1,000 times less hard than diamonds, but still, it goes, topaz, it goes granite, topaz, or topaz, granite, and garnets, and then it goes to corundum, and then diamond. They're your abrasion instruments for cutting other stone, your hardest material. Now, being into geology and having a geological background, I could identify like some of the ruby, like a red corundum. A red corundum is known as a ruby, and depending on the color, so we know that rubies, sapphires, all this is aluminum oxide, aka sandpaper, because it's so good at abrasion and cutting because of how durable it is. We find exquisite or unique examples of these. We call them sapphires, rubies, and this is an extremely rare type of sapphire right here. Now, this got mistaken before as like a copper ore or copper ingot, but this is actually a star sapphire. And it's a type of sapphire known as a gold sheen sapphire. And you can really see the sapphires in the matrix of different sapphires. Now, how it gets these beautiful greens and these amazing different colors and different bands and this goldish copperish hue is different trace metals. While the aluminum oxide crystal is forming, different trace metals will turn the aluminum oxide to different colors. Pure aluminum oxide is crystal clear to like a dullish to white in color. And then you get a lot of, if you get a lot of sulfur in the area mixing in, or sulfides, you can get like a lot of yellow sapphire. Now this is used as a tool, but this was not shaped. That's just the natural shape of the corundum. They're very square, boxy, or barrel shaped. And these gold shimmer sapphires are really rare. They've only been identified since 2009 in Africa, these gold sheen sapphires. And for these gold sheen sapphires to form, here's a beautiful one. You can really see all of the crystals, the structure of the actual aluminum oxide, which runs in these they look like tiny scratches, but like tons of them, like a tic-tac-toe kind of, in the rock. So put that back over with the unique sapphires, and sometimes you'll see like complexes where the ruby is running through a different rock, which is really rare. Get a ton of blue. So we know that the yellow sapphire is caused by trace metals of sulfur getting mixed with the aluminum oxide and hematites, and we know that the gold sheen is from different things like magnetite, hematite, titanium oxide, which gives you these blue sapphires, vanadium, which gives you color changing sapphires, which some of these will change to like purples with light on them, and different blues. You can really see the different color change when that light is brought on. And if you change the intensity or the spectrum of this light, you're going to get different colors on some of these. Now these color changing sapphires have something of vanadium in them. And really what's happening is when that light hits it, the material is only, it's absorbing some of the spectrums of light, but reflecting back some of the other spectrums of light. And this is based on what base materials, slightly radioactive base materials can affect the light, the color of the light. But the color changing corundums and sapphires are the most sought after. Now, I can only identify these as materials in these natural sapphires, and some of them have still kept their shape and their beauty. But there's some characteristics that set them apart. First of all, they're extremely hard. So if you take like extremely abrasive sandpaper or cutting tool, you can see this stuff will go right through quartz, but when you hit stuff like sapphire topaz, it's going to struggle and strip the paper and kill the grinding tools. You also get the striping inside of the rock, and also trying to keep this faceted formation of 6 sides or 4 sides. Just beautiful. On this one, you can really see it. You'll get the cleavage of the sapphires. You're gonna, when you're identifying the cleavage on the sapphire, you're gonna see these little bevels and dimples that look like some ancient writing or something. This is the cleavage of the crystal, and sometimes you'll get starring. And on this, you can see the starring, these points that are forming in the crystal matrix here, and these inclusions that come together and crisscross. But you'll see these teeth in the sapphire a lot on the edge there. And this one's really cool because it'll change to like a purple, go from like a dark slate blue to a purple, and so is this crescent shaped one back here, which is very star-like on the back. You can still see that starred inclusion in the back of the sapphire there. And some of these are really neat because it's more like a matrix. You can really start seeing the stuff in there, like the sapphire. But again, ooh, I don't want that to fall. But again, we see what's crazier is this older generation was shaping tools out of the sapphire, and they're shaping little amulets, little animals, little effigy stones. But these little blades that are made out of yellow sapphire, and sapphire is opaque. So when you put light on it, light's going to go in. It's going to hold the light inside of it. It's not going to go all the way through. And again, you see they carved the snapping turtle head into a piece of yellow and red corundum. Red corundum again being more of a ruby. So, and how you get the red color is by chromium. And if there's chromium in the area, and also different types of mercuries, you're going to get these reds, these beautiful red rubies, as we know. And what's fascinating about this ugly hunk of slab over here is this is a massive ruby. This is a massive rough corundum. They're going to be heavier than your other stones by a substantial amount. They're going to be reddish. They're going to have these color-changing properties. You're going to see all that blue and that sapphiring in there. And you can see the blue stripe that's running through this giant corundum or ruby, which is mainly red and blue. And I have other red and blue two-tone ones. That one's in the other room. That's really fascinating. It's a different color on every side. But yes, these corundums, this has the potential to be one of the largest rough rubies ever found, ever. It is over 2.5 pounds, that thing. But all these very unique corundums, there's black sapphire, which doesn't really have a lot of value. That becomes our sandpaper most of the time. It's yellows and browns. You'll get these like barrel shapes a lot of times. And what that is it was most likely six-sided, a hexagon, and it got tumbled and washed in the creek until it softened. And as you can see with this beautiful, I guess we call it a planchetted sapphire. It's like a yellowish, reddish pink. I don't know if they would classify this quite as red, but this one's very clear for a rough sapphire. This could have a lot of value to it. And this beautiful color that we get. And you can also still see that diamond shape that it tried to keep, and it got chipped off there. And a lot of times when they get tumbled and chipped off, they'll lose some of their edges or it'll round out. But you could see how hard, you could see the crystal cleavage. There's little pores that kind of look like weird writing, squiggles all on the surface. And this is all aluminum oxide or sapphire and ruby. And some of them, they're just very, very pretty. And you get like a better gem light and stuff on, you can really see the color transformation on some of this stuff. But again, this video is about ghost trees, which are sycamore trees, sapphires, animal effigies, and this culture that was using sapphire tools. Like, look at this. This is a yellow sapphire pressure flaking tool. But how did they carve this hard material out first in order to get this into the shape of a tool? And these are all very Solutrean in shape. And then we said we get all these little diamond shaped preforms and these weird six-sided zigzag shapes. What if they recognized that the pattern of this great material that they utilized and were working with forms in that diamond shape and those six-sided shapes naturally, and they're venerating this great, incredible material? What's fascinating is these older, tinier, like this is color-changing sapphire right here. These tiny little sapphire points, and this got a little rounded off, but it's got the little shoulder on it. The flaking got a rounded sapphire knife. This is a beautiful blue sapphire. Still, you can still see the corundum formation around it. You get these yellow sapphire, like snapping turtles or beavers or side profiles of bears. That looks like a hog-nosed bear in this yellowish sapphire that's very pale with this eye right there and the snout. You see two sapphire knives, yellow sapphire knives, here and here. And these are both Solutrean in design. It's a very Solutrean style sapphire blade. You can even see where the finger grip is carved out so you can press down on this front end. The question is, what did they use to shape the sapphire? And the sapphire has to be, even when we cut it modernly with a faceting machine, like with a big cutting wheel, it's more of a grinding and polishing to cut it than it is, cutting, because you're really going to cut through it with a wheel. Now, if you have a really good lapidary saw, diamond lapidary blade, you can get through it. If you're polishing and cutting it with certain synthetic or man-made materials that are harder than sapphire, the one that comes to mind is like what we use for our cutting wheels for masonry, which is it's carbide, silicate carbide mixture. It creates like this crazy, advanced polymer that is harder. It's like 9.8. It's harder than sapphire. It's up near diamond. You can use this, but because it's very close to the same hardness of sapphire, it kind of is great for polishing. But you'll go through these tools in like 5-10 minutes on a rotary tool. So you need to really get diamond if you're going to cut or shape the sapphire into anything, or just polish for a long, long, long time. But it didn't seem like the generations of people that came upon these quarry sites way later on, like we'll say what we consider as the Clovis culture, 13,000 years, stumbled across these quarry sites. You could see they try to pick up some of the sapphire. They just don't want to work with it. It's too hard. Can't really do much with it. So they either move on to another material, or it's just left there, or it's venerated. Now these sites also contain these ghost trees or sycamore trees, which are very sacred. They're in the Bible. Certain species of them are in the Bible. But really they made canoes and dugouts out of these. So it seems like these are production sites. And sycamore trees in the Northeast grow along creeks because their seeds will float down the water. The tree can also bolt. It can grow by a branch falling off of it, sticking in the ground and growing. Sycamore tree can grow in a desert. It can grow in a swamp. It can grow in a lake. It can grow out of a road. It can grow anywhere. The plant itself did have some medicinal qualities to it. I'm not going to get into all that right now because there is some toxicity involved with the sycamores in the Northeast. But these sites have been used at least from 100,000 years ago forward. And I don't care what anybody says, what any hater, what any paradigm policeman says. Anybody wants can call me a snake oil salesman. I'm not selling you anything. I'm simply showing you what I find, bringing it forward, and putting theories out there. I have no idea who these people were, where they were from. I can only tell the patterns in which I derive from the material and evidence in the finds. To work the other way around, to try to fit a theory into what you find is ass backwards. And it's kind of what we broke our backs on in North American archaeology. Now, there's a lot of suppression and cover-up to protect agendas and storylines and to keep a paradigm in place that there was nothing going on here past 13,000 years. These Solutrean quarry sites, and we can see a very old blade, much older than Clovis, non-fluted, but pressure flaked on the sides, keel hauled on the bottom, very triangular. These diamond shapes, these irregular diamonds, this diamond type shape, this kite shape here, rhombus type shape, this is all Solutrean. These tiny little cutting edges, all Solutrean. This scalpel-like knife, Solutrean. Pressure flaking tool made out of solid yellow sapphire, Solutrean. And I mean, this type of material would crush any other material. And it kind of leads me to thinking about, it's probably why they needed all these weird hammers, grinding tools, things like this. Composed of granites, of carbonites, of different, extremely abrasive cutting materials. You put a little grease and water and sand on this stuff and you rub the rock on it over and over again. You got yourself like an ancient faceting machine almost, where you can cut these sapphires down. But the time and craftsmanship in making these semi-precious gemstone points would require a ton of time. It kind of would lead me to think there wasn't a ton of conflict, that this is a peaceful time. And it would lead me to believe that the people that were most holy and venerated in their society were these master stoneworkers. And it really seems like these sites are centered around these aluminum oxide deposits, or sapphire and rubies. And oddly enough, the largest known area in the United States where decent ruby and sapphire specimens come from is Maryland. And it's just a little bit more south of where I'm at and a little more west, and we're on the same exact fault and the same exact deposit. And these are created almost by like underground voids or caves that would be under the creek that are being heated by a thermal vent under that. The area has to be completely free of silicates, quartzes, things like that for the aluminum oxide to form. If there's silicates, it can't form. Anyway, I don't know if there's any like rough stone experts out there or rough gemstone experts that could tell me if any of these rough rubies actually are unique and have some value. I know that these ones do, of course, but if any of these are clear or cool enough color or have enough quality to be worth something as rough stones. Again, all of these corundums are in these sites naturally. Some of the corundums and some of it was worked into artifact, into tool, by a culture much older than the Clovis, by a culture resembling the Solutreans. Anyways, subscribe. If you hate it, then don't. People leave great comments. People leave terrible comments. I usually don't respond to most of them at all because it's just like, goes down the rabbit hole, and I just don't really have time for negativity. And if you don't believe in it, then don't believe in it. But I'm actually out in the field looking and digging through, not digging, but just looking through these gravel bars and these these deposits in these creeks, and coming across these quarry sites, and they always have one thing in common: lots of white ghost trees, and lots of aluminum oxide, and lots of other good stone, and all metals, a lot of metals. Because for all these aluminum oxides to have these beautiful different colors, like I said, we need chromate, chromium, we need titanium oxide, ilmenite, laminate, all these different materials to make all these different colored corundums. But anyway, please subscribe. It'll be this video, and there'll be another one that's longer that has like a more like structured video clipped onto this. That's more just photographs and narration. But anyways, like I said, please subscribe. Again, if you guys find similar stuff, that's awesome. And don't think you're crazy, because this stuff is all over the place. A lot of activity going on in the Northeast. Especially the older stuff's you're really gonna find the older stuff, the old Ice Age stuff, in the middle of Pennsylvania and south, because everything above that was a 2-mile thick ice sheet. So your first human occupation 20,000 years ago, 17,000 years ago, was going to be right when that ice sheet stopped. So yeah, central Pennsylvania was the North Pole then. Pretty fascinating, right? Anyways, like I said, please subscribe. If you don't want to, don't. But if you do, thank you so much. And just be a happy lost soul. Love y'all. Peace out. Sapphires in PA. As you watch the color change before your eyes when you add a little light. And that's what you'll see in precious and semi-precious stones, is a color change when different colors and different shades and intensity of light hit them. You just get different blues, and sapphires can become purples because sapphires and rubies are related. Also, you can get some green sapphires because of the minerals they run with. But these are all found in southeast PA, near a lot of thermal and geological type activities, if you know where to look. A lot of garnets around here too, especially in the Wissahickon. But anyways, there's the thing about semi-precious and precious stones. Like, did you think you could find sapphire in PA? Well, there's plenty of it. You can just tell with certain things by their color-changing properties. So when light hits things, you'll start seeing all the blues, purples, and even some of the reds and greens that come out with these different sapphires and rubies, the red versions of sapphires, essentially. And you can really just start seeing in the different shades of light all the different little spots light up. This is just raw sapphire. And that blue cauldron is sapphire. And chaldrony, I forget the other name of the blue stuff that you'll find a lot of, which is paler. And not in these weird hexagonal type patterns.